Good morning, everyone. My name is Don Preston. I'm the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. Welcome to what I call my morning musings. I'm sharing with you some thoughts defining the day of the Lord. You know, I was raised believing, as I'm sure most of you were, that when you see the term day of the Lord, coming of the Lord, etc., that it had to refer to Jesus coming out of the sky, riding on a cumulus cloud, coming as a Jewish man. And as I began to really investigate the scriptures, I began to see that that's really a flawed concept. Now, I know that's a challenging thought to you if you haven't heard that before, but really and honestly, as I shared in the very first segment, we have to learn to think in Hebraic manner as described in the Old Testament. Let me refresh what I said in my very first segment. First of all, the Bible is a Hebraic book written by Hebrews to Hebrews about Hebraic promises. You and I were raised in what's known as the Grecian worldview. Our challenge, therefore, when it comes to biblical interpretation, known as hermeneutics, is to get into the mindset, to get into the world of the Hebraic writers and see what they said, see what they thought, see how they expressed themselves. So as I'm sharing with you how to define the day of the Lord, I want to share with you, and by the way, as I mentioned yesterday, what I'm going to share with you is just, really, really short thumbnail sections of what's found in my book, Like Father, Like Son, on Clouds of Glory. I will share this with you. This has been called by several professors. This has been called the most definitive work on the nature of the parousia that they have ever read. And it really does go in depth in explaining and defining what the Bible means when it uses the term day of the Lord or coming of the Lord. And it investigates so much more. But anyway, to begin our investigation, as I suggested, the New Testament writers use the term day of the Lord without defining it. And they tell us repeatedly that what they're looking for, i.e. the day of the Lord, is what was told by the Old Testament prophets. They use the language of the prophets. Again, never defining it, never explaining it, taking it for granted that the New Testament readers would understand what they meant by the language that they used. So, to help us define the day of the Lord, coming of the Lord, the language of the coming of the Lord, let's examine some Old Testament prophecies and see how the Old Testament writers use the language of the coming of the Lord. First passage I'd like to share with you is Psalms 18. 2 Samuel chapter 22 is a parallel passage. But Psalms 18, here's the historical context. David has been declared to be the successor of Saul. Saul is jealous. Saul sets out to kill David. And you'll remember the story from the books of Samuel. Saul chases David all over everywhere, attempting to kill him. David has at least a couple of different opportunities to kill Saul, but he doesn't do it. But Psalms 18 and 2 Samuel 22 is David's record of Saul attempting to kill him, David's appeal to God to deliver him, and God's response, or David's description of God's response. With that in mind, let me read to you some verses from Psalms 18. The pangs of death, verse 4, the pangs of death encompassed me. The floods of ungodliness made me afraid. The sorrows of Sheol surrounded me, and the snares of death confronted me. In my distress I called upon the Lord. cried out to my God. He heard from my voice from his temple. My cry came before him, even to his ears. Now watch. So here's David, said he cried out to the Lord. Lord, deliver me. The earth shook and trembled. The foundations of the hills quaked and were shaken, because he was angry, and devouring fire from his nostrils, coals were kindled by it. He bowed down the heavens also, and came down. With darkness under his feet, he rode upon a cherub, and flew. He flew upon the wings of the wind. He made darkness his secret place. His canopy around him was dark waters, and thick clouds of skies. From the brightness before him, his thick clouds passed with hailstones and coals of fire. The Lord thundered from the heavens, and the Most High uttered his voice, hailstones and coals of fire. He sent out his arrows and scattered the foe, lightnings in abundance, and he vanquished them. Then the channels of the waters were seen, and the foundations of the world were uncovered. At your rebuke, O Lord, at the blast of the breath of your mouth, he sent from above. He took me. He drew me out of many waters. He delivered me from my strong enemy. Did you catch the power of all that? David said, Saul was seeking my life. I prayed to the Lord. Lord, deliver me. And the Lord delivered me. He shouted. He came out of heaven. Heaven and earth trembled. The foundations of the earth were revealed. The hills were shaken and removed. None of that literally, physically occurred. You can read 1 Samuel. You can read the entire account of Saul chasing David. You won't find any of this that happened literally or physically. And yet people tell us, well, the Bible says what it means. It means what it says. Well, it does if we allow it to speak to us in the original idioms, the original vernacular, the original thought, and the original genre of literature. This is what's known as apocalyptic language. It sounds like the destruction of heaven and earth. It sounds like the destruction of creation. But David is just simply saying, the Lord delivered me. Boy, exaggerated language, never to be taken literally. So in this first section, here's an example in which David says, God came out of heaven with flaming fire, with a shout, and he shook heaven and earth. But it cannot be taken literally. Keep in mind now, David said, God came. We have a whole lot more coming. Thanks for joining me for this morning's Morning Musings. We'll see you on the flip side.